Good morning, YouTube, and welcome to my first video. This is a review video for the Redcat Tornado. I've had this car for, let's see, about 5 months now, 4 or 5 months. And it seems to be a car that is fairly common out there, but it is somewhat difficult to find review information about. And in particular, it's hard to find detailed review information. There's a lot of differing and highly polarized opinions about Redcat racing out there. So I thought I'd make a video for anybody out there who's considering buying this car for themselves, who is perhaps considering buying it for one of their children. This was a Christmas present for my 6-year-old son, although it's really, I think, my car more than his. But I imagine that there's a lot of people who have this as a first hobby-grade RC car. What I'm going to do is break the review basically into, I think, 2 videos. Before I get into a lot of detail about what my experience with the car has been, I just wanted to make a quick video to explain a little bit why we decided on this car compared to other cars and some of the features of the car. And I think that helps to put the car in perspective compared to what else is out there. My son got interested in RC back in the fall just by looking at some things online. I, had a few cars when I was a kid, nothing too fancy. A Nico Dictator was about the best that I had. And then fell out of the RC hobby for a few decades. He kind of got me back into it, and he decided early on that he wanted to get a buggy. And this right away sort of, limits the number of choices that you have around entry level. These days there appear to be a lot of stadium and short course trucks marketed in a, anywhere from the 150 to 250 range. And that's fine if you like those things. We both really wanted to get a buggy, and in particular he wanted a 4-wheel drive buggy. And if you think about what is out there, at the entry-level price point for 4-wheel drive buggies, there's really not all that much. You can spend, $150 to $200 more and get, something like a Lowe's or Associated 4-wheel drive buggy. Typically, those are coming less electronics. So once you tack on the electronics, you could be looking at, $500, $600, maybe more for the whole kit. The Tornado here, you get for about $200. And it is ready to run. So let's look and see a little bit what you get for that. Now this car has a few upgrades, which incidentally are for the most part available through Redcat or through HSP or Exceed, which are other brands that use a clone of this same car. So you should in theory be able to swap out parts. I believe it's the Exceed model is the Sunfire, and the HSP model is the XSTR. So this is the Tornado EPX Pro. This is the brushless version. Again, it's about $200. The wheels on here are not stock. It comes with some pretty nice looking 5-spoke sort of blue and gold looking wheels with some studded tires. They are perfectly adequate for off-road. Haven't had any issues with them. Not really the best for on-road driving, in particular because this car makes quite a lot of torque. So under aggressive throttle, you'll see some spinning out on the stock tires. So I upgraded here with some Proline Dirt Hogs all around. These white wheels I found, I think, for $5 or $6 for the whole set on Amazon. They were marketed under HSP wheels, but they're just generic wheels, so I just glued them. Let's get to the car itself. I think I would start by saying this is a pretty good looking car from my perspective. And apart from how good it looks, I think you get some nice features for the price point. So let me go into that. All right. This is a 4-wheel drive 1/10 scale buggy. It's shaft driven. Just uses I don't even know what the technical term is, just a flat kind of pan chassis here. It comes stock with a 3300 kV motor. I believe that is a Leopard motor, although I am not sure. And it comes stock with a waterproof Hobbywing 45 amp ESC that is rated for 2S to 3S LiPo. I have not used the car on 3S. I've used it on 2S. I'm hearing mixed reviews out there about how well it actually handles 3S. There's a big fan on top of the ESC you can see. It's probably hard to appreciate it, but if you look in there, you can see right there some wires for the plug for the fan. So my understanding is if you want to run this thing on 3S with the stock ESC, you need to power the fan off of the receiver over here. All right, so enough about that. What else do you get for the stock price? Get a nice aluminum top chassis brace here. The stock car does come with aluminum shock towers in the front and the back, which I like. Now, I've upgraded. The stock shock towers are cast aluminum, and they're relatively thin for about, you know, $10, even less, depending on if you do a little comparison shopping on Amazon. You can get these billet aluminum shock towers. They are substantially thicker. Billet aluminum is stronger, and they just look nicer. So I upgraded to the billet aluminum shock towers front and rear. Now, some people have complained about the stock aluminum shock towers bending easily. Aluminum, of course, has, you know, good rigidity, but once it decides to bend, you're not going to get that flex like you get with plastic. And I did have that problem. I will say this car has taken quite a lot of abuse, so I don't know that I can rightfully pin that on the quality, the poor quality of the shock towers, but since the upgrade was relatively cheap, we went ahead and did it. Now, the car also comes with oil-filled aluminum bodied shocks stock. Now, I replaced these after crashing it, bent one of the shocks, so I just, for I think $7 or $8, got a pair of shocks from HSP. They turned out to be a little bit long, but they fitted fine. The basic shocks are the same. I should say that because this is my first, you know, hobby grade buggy in decades, I didn't really have a lot of comparisons. So some people have said, well, yes, they're aluminum, but they're not as nice as, you know, something that you're going to get on a, I don't know, a Losi buggy or a Team Durango or something like that. And my answer is, of course, they're not. You know, you can replace these for $8 or $9. And actually, I kind of like that. If you're going to use this car for bashing, which is what we use it for, these shocks seem to work very well. I haven't had any performance issues with them. You can adjust the threading on the, you know, in terms of the spring rate there. There's also on the front, I don't know how well you guys can see this here. There are two positions to adjust a shock on the suspension arm, a whole bunch of positions on the shock tower, and on the back you got the same thing. Lots of positions on the shock tower, then actually three different hole positions down here, depending on how you want to adjust it. There's just a little grub screw that holds that in. So I like the fact that you get aluminum shock towers straight out of the box. I like the fact that you get oil-filled aluminum shocks that are adjustable. Are they as nice as, you know, $50 or more shocks that you're going to get from, you know, a really nice aftermarket manufacturer? Of course not, but they also are very inexpensive to replace and seem to get the job done just fine. What else does this stock car come with? Well, it's got adjustable camber links, and it's got adjustable steering links. You can see right here, they're just pivot ball. My understanding is that even a lot of more expensive cars don't have this. Now, I will say that adjustable is a double-edged sword. So you can adjust camber, you can adjust toe in versus toe out, depending on how you want to set up your steering. That is nice, but then of course you got to fiddle with it a lot if you want to adjust the stock settings to make sure that, you know, the wheels are aligned and all that. But if you like fiddling and you like adjustability, it's a nice feature in a $200 car. You can see here it comes with a servo saver. Now this stuff is all plastic, and I had no quality or breakage issues with the stock plastic steering setup. I bought, as a set, a bunch of aluminum upgrades, and this came with it, so I thought, why not install it? So I have the aluminum servo saver and steering linkage there. You can see the Ackerman bar under there. Works fine, no complaints. There's a, very, very, I don't know if you guys can appreciate that. Probably can't even see it. Tiny, tiny, tiny amount of play there. I mean, a millimeter or so, if you're really fastidious on that tightness in your steering linkage, it's just something to be aware of. But that comes stock plastic. I've upgraded the steering servo. I'm going to get to that in a minute. The stock car comes with plastic steering knuckles and plastic hub carriers and plastic wheel hexes all around. Now, I had no problems with breakage on any of this stuff. As I'll get to in a few minutes when I actually talk about the performance review, this car has taken a lot of abuse. But I thought to upgrade to aluminum just because I hear, or rather read on the internet, that these are common parts to break. So you can see the wheel hexes are now aluminum, the hub carriers are aluminum, the steering knuckles are aluminum. I've got the aluminum ones on the back there too. You can go on Amazon and you can get for 25 or 30 bucks a set of front and rear hub carriers, steering knuckles, steering linkage, all aluminum. Pretty good deal. So I upgraded there. The stock car, I don't have the bumper on me, but you can easily find pictures of this online. The stock car comes with a very small curved little bumper. It doesn't stick out very far. I suppose this is okay for racing if you're going to use this car for bashing, which is what I use it for and what I think most people probably use it for. You're going to want something a little bit better. This is a TBR Basher front bumper. Looks quite nice, gets the job done. That bumper comes with screws that'll mount right on. I actually went down to the hardware store and for about $1.97 picked up some additional screws and nuts just so I could mount that without having that stock bumper, which usually sits right there. Did the same thing on the rear. TBR Basher bumper in the rear, so we're good. My son's 6 and he likes to send this thing into the curb at 25 or 30 miles an hour, so it's kind of a needed upgrade. But you can get both of these bumpers together. I forget, they're probably in the $10 to $15 range each, plus a few bucks for shipping. So I would probably upgrade that first if you get this car. All right, what else can I tell you about this car? It comes stock with dog bones. I've upgraded to CVDs in the front and the rear, but it comes stock with dog bones. CVDs are not that expensive to upgrade. You won't see it in the descriptions, but this car comes with full ball bearings all around, and the differentials are all metal gear. So it handles the brushless power well. I'm not sure. Redcat is a young company. I think they've only been around for about 10 years. And you won't necessarily see it advertised on the specs for the car when you look online, but my understanding is they have over the years made little upgrades here and there to the car to address some problems that people had. So you've got metal gear, sealed diffs, front and rear. That is nice. I don't have the spur gear cover off, but comes with metal pinion gear for the motor. It comes with, I believe it's a 64 tooth metal spur gear. Now I have put the slightly smaller spur on there to increase the top speed of this car. I can't even really appreciate a decrease in acceleration. The thing goes like a bat out of hell. But that 56 tooth that I just put on there is plastic. The car does not come with the slipper clutch. I wish that it did. It's not the end of the world. I haven't had issues, but it would be just a nice thing to have on there. It's possible that you could fit an aftermarket slipper clutch on there. I'm not going to take that apart and sort of show you guys what that looks like, but I suspect, given the clearances, that you can probably fit one on there. All right, what else we got? Talked about the motor, talked about the ESC. Just got a little, tiny little receiver there, nothing fancy. Radio's nothing fancy, but it works just fine. In fact, let me go show it to you. realize this is a long video, but I assume if you're watching up to this point, it's because you want the detailed lowdown on this car. So I'm giving it to you. All right, basic radio, nothing fancy, 2.4 gigahertz, battery powered. I've had the same batteries in here for months and they haven't run out yet. You've got dual rate adjustment, which basically determines how far your wheels are going to turn. You've got throttle adjustment. Now, to be clear, that is not throttle endpoint. That is sort of just basic throttle. So you want to adjust it so that the car is not moving forwards or backwards if you don't have your finger on the trigger. So this does not allow you to adjust the top speed of the car. On the track, when my son and I were still in the shopping around phase, it looks we borrowed a car, and it looks like a lot of the nicer radios have the ability to adjust the throttle down so that the top speed of the car might only be 10 or 15 miles an hour. If you want to give it to a little kid, that's a nice feature, but it doesn't have this. And of course, it's got steering trim adjustment. I haven't used it, but you can also put rechargeable batteries in this radio and charge it. I've looked online. If you want to replace one of these radios with the receiver, if you break it, it's, I don't know, 30 or 40 bucks. So this is an entry-level radio. Honestly, it's worked fine, though, for me. For the price point, I know that 2.4 gigahertz radios are increasingly common these days, but it looks like there are still some entry-level cars that use AM radios. So it's nice to have the 2.4 gigahertz radio. Range has not been an issue for this thing. I've taken it, fairly far out without it cutting out for range. So basic radio, but it gets the job done. Now, one issue that I have had with the car, which I'll get to in the other video, but I want to alert you guys of, is the steering servo. This comes stock with a 3CP steering servo from Hexfly. I do not believe that it is waterproof, strictly speaking, but it is a plastic geared servo, and I believe the 3CP means it's rated at 3 kilograms per centimeter. For a four-wheel drive car, particularly making this kind of brushless power, that is not a strong enough servo. And I wish that Redcat would just upgrade the servo out of the box, but it's also very cheap and easy to replace. The servo bolts right in, or screws right in, so you can just take it off and put another one on. Some people have reported that the steering servo, breaks out of the box or breaks within a couple runs. I didn't have that experience, but after about 3 or 4 months of use, it was still working, and I noticed that I just didn't get return completely to neutral with the wheels. It looked like the servo was losing power. So for 10 bucks, I upgraded to a Tower Hobbies, what is this? MG996R. This is a Metal Gear servo. I believe it's rated at somewhere between 10 and 15 kgs per centimeter of torque. And then just threw a $10 axial servo horn on there. Again, you can see the servo linkage. This is the stock one, is adjustable too, which I imagine you would expect. So overall, I think you get a pretty good feature list for this car out of the box. Again, this is a $200 car. They give you a trickle wall charger, which nobody uses, so it just stays in the box. And for safety reasons, you don't want to use with the LiPo. But they also give you, or they gave me, a 15C 3500 mAh 2S LiPo. So I think you really get a lot of good features for this car. Back to, what you're doing with this car and why you're buying it. For a four-wheel drive buggy, you don't have a lot of options for this price point. Now, some critics have said I'd rather spend $300, $400, $500, $600 for a nice buggy, something from Associated, something from Lowe's, something from one of the other big manufacturers. At least then I know that I'm getting quality, whereas with Redcat, you're spending $200 for crap. And all I can say is that's just not true. I've been very happy with this car. For a first RC car, I'm not buying a 6-year-old, a $500 or $600 car all in. But the other thing is that I suspect, I'm sure somebody can correct me in the comments here if you're still listening, I suspect that some of those more expensive cars aren't really good for bashing. If you look at them, they are very low to the ground. They're really optimized for racing, not for, ripping through gravel and dirt and all the stuff that you normally do when you're bashing. So it's not just that they're more expensive, it's that I actually don't know that they would be good cars for somebody who's just, you know, taking the RC out on weekends for fun with their kid. All right, so that's what I have to say in a nutshell about this car. Again, overall assessment is that you get quite a lot of features for the money. I would count on having to replace that steering servo sometime within the first few months of usage, but that is an easy upgrade. You know, my new servo is $10. You can go nuts with servos and spend $100 or $200 if you want to, but you know, this MG996R gets the job done, and it's way better than what the car came with. So all good on that front. Get a bunch of aluminum parts, oil-filled shocks. One thing I didn't mention, I haven't clocked the top speed on this car, but it is very fast out of the box. It has, frankly, I think as much power as you can use in any situation other than just straight line speed runs. I'll probably upgrade the motor at some point just for fun, but this 3300 kV motor makes the car go like stink. So yeah, good car overall. Oh, let me talk about a few things that I don't like about the car, just to be fair. There's not a lot, but I want to be fair, so real fast. Steering servo I already talked about. The adjustable steering is nice. There is a very tiny amount of play in the steering. Let me see if I can. I don't know if you guys can see that. So just wiggling that Ackerman bar just a tiny bit. This doesn't really make an appreciable difference that I can tell, but again, for people who really want their steering dialed down with ultimate precision, there you go. Car doesn't come with a slipper clutch. I wish that it did. What else can I say? Car does not come with hex screws. Now, these upgraded aluminum pieces came with hexes here, which is nice. But the rest of the car comes with Phillips head. It's not the end of the world. They're just more of a pain in the butt to get in and out, and as you all know, the heads can strip easily. I haven't had a problem with that yet, but I imagine that as I keep working on the car, I will. But you can easily find screw kits from hex screws or RC screws that, you know, just are in a bunch of lengths and you can use to replace the screws. They may be 20 or 30 bucks for a big old kit of them. So at some point I'll probably swap the car out the hex screws. Other than those few things, I really don't have a lot of complaints about this car. It's very possible that 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, a lot of the complaints that you would hear about Redcat were true. I can't speak to that because this was the first car I've owned from them. All I can tell you is my experience has been that it's a good feature list for the money, easily upgradable if you want to, and quite a lot of fun and durable. So that's it. Going on 23 minutes here. I'll do another video where I just give you guys a quick durability rundown, but I wanted to give you a detailed look at what the car has and what it doesn't have, and some of the stuff like the you know, the bearings and the metal gears in the diffs that you wouldn't necessarily see on the feature list. If you have any questions about this car, I'd be happy to answer them. Just throw them in the comment section and I'll do my best. All right, guys, thanks.